Good evening and Happy New Year. I'd like to call the January 2nd, 2018 Town Council meeting to order. Please stand to salute the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good evening. At 5:30 this evening, we did have an executive session tonight on litigation and update on the library, so I'm going to turn it over to Mark Davis, the solicitor.
Good evening. It was brought to my attention last week that I may not have been as articulate as I should have been when I summarized what was discussed in the executive meeting the prior week and what Gilbane had agreed to. So I just want to clarify. The town had authorized me to negotiate and set a price of $2.7 million. I want to be clear that Gilbane has not agreed to the $2.7 million price tag, nor had they agreed to that previously. So that's something we'll be working on, but I wanted to be clear they were not in agreement with that number. Number two, there was discussion in the proposal about seller financing. I want to be clear that was not Gilbane's suggestion or desire. It was something that the town asked them to consider. They did consider it, and ultimately the town had decided to pass on that option, but that was not Gilbane's initiative. That was something the town asked them to consider, and they did. And the third part was in that map that you may have seen, talking about the subdivision of the property. There was something called Parcel C, and I had, I'm told, suggested that Gilbane had approved the sale of Parcel C, which they have, but they want to retain use of that space. So I wanted to clarify that. The general parameters of the deal haven't changed, but I did want to clarify the things that Gilbane did not agree to, and argued that some people may have interpreted my previous comments to mean that they had agreed to it. So I think we're in good shape for the deal that I think we will ultimately bring to the town via a purchase and sales agreement, but I wanted to clarify those points.
Thank you, Mark.
No.
Moving on in the meeting, approval of the minutes, November 20th, 2017, work session meeting. Do I have a motion?
So move.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Any questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
4-0, motion passes. For the November 20th and the December 1st, I'm going to hold on both of those. President Pro Tem was out, and Jill Lawler's not here tonight, so I'm going to hold on both of those and continue to the next meeting. And we're going to move on to the showcase and presentation. And tonight, I'm happy to have Sue Wright and Wynn Haynes are going to come up and talk to us about the Lions Christmas dinner at the North Beach Clubhouse. Good evening.
Good evening. Hello, Madam President. I appreciate the opportunity to be able to come before you and say thank you very much for the support to the Narragansett Town Council and the Narragansett Parks and Recs Department for the Narragansett Lions Club to be able to hold our annual Christmas dinner this year at the Narragansett North Beach Pavilion, the clubhouse. It was a beautiful setting. The people that came out really enjoyed it. We served over 70 people, but there was many other dinners that were people had come in to take out for those that could not make it. We also provided meals. There's a few members that went out to the community, to local shelters, and delivered food to them as well. So Wynn, our chef over here, did a fabulous job. We had food enough for about 120 meals.
About 120. So.
And we went through all that. So our culinary chef over here. But also, we couldn't have done it without the help of local businesses, too. Belmont's Market donated all the food. Champlain Seafood donated some wonderful salmon, which was a nice addition this year. Sunset Farms donated the pies. Dunes Club provided the table linens, which made it look really festive at the beach club. and as well as all the, all the volunteers from the Narragansett Lions Club that came out to help serve, help cook, clean up, and just be a part of this wonderful experience of the community. Because there was one woman that came up to me and just said, I would not have gotten dressed today or left my house if you didn't have that. And you know what? That makes that makes it all worth the while. So thank you for that opportunity, and we look forward to doing it again next year at this location. It's a huge hit.
Thank you. Thank you, Wynn. Outstanding. Thank you. Okay, moving on to open forum. If you have something to say, please come to the podium, say your name, your address, and you get 3 wonderful minutes. Rosemary.
Hello, Happy New Year.
Happy New
Rosemary
Year.
Smith, Castle Road, Narragansett. I wanted to invite you, members of the Town Council, and the staff, and the community to the 7th annual On Pettisquamscot Winter Speaker Series, which are presentations on the environment and the history of the Narrow River watershed. And so they take place on selected Sundays in the winter. And this is a collaboration between the Friends of Canachet Farm, South County Museum, Narrow River Preservation Association, the Maury Lucian's Library, and we get a generous support from Trio Restaurant. The presentations are from 1 to 3 at the Maury Lucian's Memorial Library, and they're free and open to the public. And then we encourage people to leave that and continue the conversation over at Trio Restaurant afterwards. There are 3 selected Sundays coming up. January 28th, Blair O'Gagnon, who's the Associate Director of the South County Museum, will be speaking on The Sampler, a young lady's education in the 18th and 19th centuries. February 25th, Gary Casabona, who's a state biologist with the Natural Resources Conservation Service, which is part of the U.S. Department of Agriculture. He'll be speaking on habitat management of pollinators. And then on March 25th, Linda Green will be speaking, and she's the director of the URI Watershed Watch, and she will be talking about Narrow River and its watershed and 25 years in review. And so interesting topics for all. Usually we fill up the room, so we suggest to people that they make a reservation for a seat at the library, and they can go right to the calendar section of the library to reserve a seat for themselves. So thank you very much, and we look forward to seeing everyone there.
Thank you, Rosemary.
You're welcome.
Anybody else wishing to speak? Richard?
Yeah, Richard Van Gemersh, 55 Osceola. I'd like to just speak briefly about the library liquor store, which is no question to me a much better deal. And as mentioned, the word control comes in, but there are some concerns. One of them is the legal limit of the bond issue, which did not mention the purchase of a private sector business, and that is a problem sometimes with bond counsel, because the question of the tax status of the interest revenue to the recipient can get cloudy. There's no question that a library would yield a tax-exempt status, but a private sector purchase comes a little bit differently, and it's also not in tune with this. Now, I'm concerned that the more we pay Gilbane, because they're given more, will cut the library amount well below $3.4 million. My solution is this. The town fund the purchase of the liquor store separately from the library bond issue through a special enterprise fund, which is very common, and we have some special enterprise funds already that they're not new to us. And the library then would be in a much better shape if the town purchased that. Then the $5.8 million bond issue is for the library this. And again, as a member of the Narragansett Finance Committee, I will reiterate what our chairman, Harris Chawney, said. You know, we want to help. And I think especially Mark Abrams, very, very familiar with things like revenue procedures here. And really, would think bond counsel would be uneasy with a portion of the bond going to a private sector enterprise fund. That's something we have to think about. We avoid it if, when you're negotiating, you say, well, the town will deal with you with the liquor store, and the town will deal with, that's one bit. And the other bit would be the town purchasing it with the bond issue.
Thank you, Richard. Anybody else wishing to speak? Stanley?
Stan Wojciechowski, Narragansett. A success. We can celebrate. Happy New Year. And we got the right solution. And I want to talk about the data that I received for that. According to the police weekly updates, we have 20% less nuisance reports and stickers, and we're 21% below last year in Eastwood Look on nuisance, 31% below on Eastwood Look stickers to date. So it looks like we've done something to have a success here. And with the success, let's abandon any past failures that we might have considered, namely the landlord list. You know, it didn't work. It didn't result in the success we have here. So at what point do we make a decision not to spend money on a failed effort? Drunk, disorderly, disturbing the peace persons were not solved with a landlord list. Therefore, I think we need to abandon that. We should not continue with it. The property owners in Narragansett should not have to pay for a landlord list maintenance, since there was no value as far as these proofs here. I just hope that you would consider taxpayers in all future work you do. Thank you.
Thank you, Stanley. Anybody else wishing to speak at open forum? Okay, moving on. The public hearing, we're going to continue to January 16th at 8 o'clock on the historic districts, right? Okay. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda, or are there any council members wishing to pull an item from the consent? Oh, I need a motion to continue the public hearing on historic districts to January 16th at 8 o'clock. Do I have a motion?
So moved. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
4-0, motion passes. Do I have anybody making a motion to approve the consent agenda, or anybody who wants to pull an item? Motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor of approving the consent agenda? Aye.
Aye. Aye.
4-0, motion passes. New business. Motion 5, a motion to hire Andolfo Appraiser Associates, Inc., to appraise the value of the Belmont Market and the Pier Liquor Store for the new proposal for the town's library, not to exceed $2,500 for the cost of the updated appraisal. Do I have a motion?
I'll move that motion.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Discussion. Any discussion from the council? And this is going to be, Jim, just to clarify publicly, it's going to be a combination of funding for that appraisal from the library board and the town. You're going to work that out with the library board as far as the amount of money for the appraisal?
Well, I think the way it's written here is the library board has agreed to pay $2,500 towards it. Is that correct?
I think it was 1,000 or 1,100. So, Laura, can you come on up just for clarification, because I know that the library board did have a discussion.
So we did have a board meeting, and we did present this proposal, and we approved a number that's under that. But again, I need to get back to them with information, which I don't have any information that they've asked for, and they have, 2,500 is not what we approved. So I'll have to go back to the board to.
So it was under 2,500.
It
What
was under
the-
2,500, but the number we approved is less than what he has agreed to do the appraisal for. The pressing issue is we need to get some information to him, or he will not be able to meet the next council meeting at the end of the month. And so I'm trying to get in the loop on the information that is needed.
Yeah, because obviously the new appraisal, we want to add the changes, like the additional land, lots, well, we were going to say Lot C, but those important pieces that will be able to compare the old appraisal to the new appraisal to show the value of the property that we're
Right.
purchasing with the liquor
There's some specific
store.
questions. I mean, I think that if I could talk to the town solicitor about it and then get information to refer for the appraisal, that would probably work. Correct?
Okay. Does that sound good, Mark, as far as getting together? Because we are going to want certain things in that appraisal.
I'm happy to meet if you can submit maybe a list of what you need ahead of
Sure.
time. And then feel free to give me a call.
Okay,
Yeah.
great.
Okay, sounds good.
So if you approve it for 2,500, it's still sort of, we have a number which we are a little short, so we would have to go back to the board. So either you can, if we don't approve the full amount, then I guess you could make the difference because you're approving it for 2,500 tonight. Is that possible?
Yeah, I think so. I
Okay.
mean, yeah, I think that's, I mean, I don't know how much it's going to come in
How
for
much
the
was the
appraisal.
original appraisal?
2,475.
Okay, well, this is gonna be a supplement. He's just gonna take that old appraisal
Well, he's, so
and
originally.
plug in these new components,
Right,
and then write a letter, correct?
yes.
Yeah, so
he's-
it's not gonna be no 2,500, I guarantee
Right.
you that.
But again, we had a number that we approved that was
Yep.
less than what he
Okay.
came in for,
Okay.
so.
Yep,
Okay.
we'll figure it out.
Okay.
right?
So has someone met with him regarding that? Is that?
I've
Who?
spoken to him about it.
Yeah.
I've spoken to Tom Andolfo because he originally did the work and came through with me.
Yeah.
And he has a list of questions, and a lot of it is the structure of the deal right now. So all I have is the public information, but he's asking very specific questions I don't have the answer to.
Right. When you get there.
So we don't have a final deal yet?
A final.
2.7 to 2.8, right? So, okay, yeah. all right.
So, Mark, if you could, Lori, if you could send Mark some of those questions that you had, maybe we could get together and get that information, then we could see the appraisal, because I don't think it's going to come at, I put 2,500 not to exceed. I think it's going to come in less than that.
Right.
Okay, thank you, Lori. Richard?
Yeah, we would also need to very carefully inform the appraiser that we have a different situation here, and that ultimately the best test for an appraisal value for an enterprise fund would be the total value of the property. We want to make sure that the liquor store pot is also considered with the other pot, so we could then look at the total, whatever the total is, and get a percent. And we would say the appraiser assigns this percent to the liquor store. Now, that is probably a very sound basis for the start of a private enterprise fund in government accounting. And it would be very useful too, because I think, because it's an ongoing business, that percent may be higher than the other part of the building. And that is crucial because the library gets squeezed if we spend more money on this. Somehow we have to differentiate the two because they're two different animals. Woof, woof. Anyway, and generally there is little dispute about an assignment of value to the liquor store and the Belmont grocery store if the appraiser has this 20%, 80%, 16%, 84. It certainly is a sound basis for a rational apportionment of cost. And I think it's crucial because we don't want to penalize the library for us purchasing the liquor store. This makes no sense.
Thank you, Richard. Anybody else wishing to speak on the motion on the appraisal?
So this appraisal is coming from the new proposal, which we're still kind of working on the details of, but I unfortunately wasn't at the special meeting that was called in December on this issue. So I know it's going forward. I know that I know where it's going on that front. I think there's been a lot of discussion about, is it a better deal or a worse deal? I think it's important for people to know that in our executive sessions, when we spoke about this since the beginning, this concept of a subdivision came up in those conversations. We talked about, our attorneys briefed us on subdivision versus condo ownership and the benefits and drawbacks of each of those approaches. So I think it's important for everybody to understand that, and we didn't go the subdivision route because there are drawbacks to that approach, just as there are drawbacks to the condominium approach, and such as the time frame within which a subdivision is going to take place. It's going to be several months. We're in the special urban redevelopment zone in the Galilee area, which will come up for a subdivision approval to this town council because we have the jurisdiction over that area. Most subdivisions go to planning board decisions, correct, Mark?
That's correct.
Right, so most go there. This one will come eventually to us. Subdivisions, if you attend planning board meetings, tend to be controversial. There are frontage concerns with this particular subdivision. If we make this subdivision, if we agree to make this go through, other entities and developers will say, well, you did it there to make a project you wanted a reality. What about subdividing this property or this condominium? So we had those discussions. So everyone acted like there was this big, new, great thing that happened. We talked about subdivision versus condo ownership and the benefits and drawbacks of each. So it's just, this wasn't something that came left afield December 20th, something brand new. And so, again, I go back to, at this point, I do not feel that Gilbane has negotiated in good faith on this project. I'm not going to be voting to go forward with it. And I think we are not being fiscally responsible with it. We're playing close to the cap. And I think there's a way for us to refurbish our existing library and comply with the ADA regulations. And I think we need to just be clear on what's going on.
So, Matt, the motion is for the appraisal. I would gather through everything that you said that you're not going to vote for the appraisal. Is that because we're sticking to the motion? The motion on the floor is to decide if you're in favor of having a new appraisal based on the new proposal.
So the concept is, do I vote for it? Obviously, you want to have an appraisal of property. Andolfo did the earlier appraisal. That came in at 2.045 for the main property. But now it's a matter of, I'm not going down the IGA Belmont train anymore. So I just want to be clear with everyone.
Thank you, Matt. Anybody else on the appraisal? Anybody from the public? Stanley.
I just got a little confused. Are you saying that we are going to purchase the liquor store separately from the market now? So we got an added cost? No, it's all included, right?
All included.
That's all included.
Yes.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Okay, there's a motion on the floor for the appraisal. All those in favor?
Aye. Aye.
No.
All those opposed?
No.
3-1, motion passes. Motion 6, a motion to award the bid for the library generator project to the lowest bidder, K Electric, Inc., in the amount of $71,456. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Discussion. Jim, do you want to say anything about the generator? The library generator, this has been...
Yes. Yes, Madam President. I'll get into the overview of it, and
Is
then
your
I'll...
microphone on?
Yes.
Okay. I couldn't hear it.
Is that better?
It's better.
I'll do an overview, and then I'll call Mr. Cesarine up to just go over the particulars on it, the numbers.
Okay.
So the town of Narragansett has received a grant after Hurricane Sandy for $35,000 to place a generator in the library. One of the stipulations is it must be used as a library for a period of time, which is approximately 3 years, 2 to 3 years, with this generator. The generator cannot be moved to another building. It would have, and the reason it's being, this grant came out was that the library would be used as an evacuation center, a warming center, in the event of a public emergency, natural disaster in the town of Narragansett. We went back and forth on this. First off, the deadline for this is April. So it's tonight, either we make a decision on it or we probably lost this grant. So we would get $35,000 out of approximately $72,000 expenditure for the generator. The difference is about $36,000. The library board has offered to pay approximately $12,000 towards this generator, which would mean a liability to the town of $24,000. I think if you look long-term with the town's needs, it is my understanding we will not be selling that building, no matter if can't sell it, because we would only gain probably 50 cents on a dollar from a sale because of OLS reimbursement. We've already talked about that. But also, this library would be a vital part of the town for a long time. So this generator would, by the time, even if this goes through with the Belmont building, we're still looking at a couple of years, 2 to 3 years before the library moves in. We would have a generator for about half the price. That building still could be used as an evacuation center, a warming center for the future, for as long as that generator lasts. So
But there's a 3-year window.
That's what I'm going to, Jeff, it's a 3-year window, correct? Or 2 years? 3-year window.
We can deal with that.
We'll be very close.
Okay.
But like I said, we've put it off for quite a while, not knowing what direction we're going in, and tonight would be the night we'd have to make a decision. Jeff, I'll turn it over to
So
you.
the generator is going to stay in that building no matter
That's
what?
correct.
And
That's
so
correct.
even if, or when the proposal of the library happens, or the purchase of it, that generator is still going to stay there, so we're paying for it for the next couple of years now, with the grant?
It will
We're not-
stay there,
yeah,
yes,
and so-
permanently.
Okay. So that makes sense to me.
Yeah, the grant came with a couple of conditions. One is that it had to stay with the specific location in mind. The second was that we have to use it in that location for a period of 3 years after we install it. And this gets back to the old saying, timing is everything. We've been talking about the generator off and on since we applied for it. We've also been talking about the possible transition to the Belmont building at about the same time. So there's no nefarious scheme here as to, why did we just put this out to bid this fall? We're bumping up against the end of the grant deadline, so we either do it now or we don't do it.
Okay. Makes sense.
We did talk to the state about the possibility of a grant extension, and we received generally negative comments that basically their response was, hey, you guys have had 4 years to decide on this. You need to make the decision.
So we'll pay like the difference, if they'll pay 12, we'll pay like the 23 and...
It'll be about a $24,000
24.
cost to the town for a $71,000 generator.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Anybody else?
A couple of questions.
Lori?
Now we've got 2 libraries. At the first we didn't have one, now we got 2 of them.
So I'm confused
Lori,
about a
just
couple.
say your name and
Lori
address.
Kelly, Wildfield Farm Road. I'm confused about a couple things. One, Mr. Manny, you said that we cannot sell the current building or it will jeopardize the funding. That is not true.
No, that's true. I was there. I asked
No,
Karen?
it's only if it was a simultaneous buy and sale of a library building. Once we ink the deal with the state and we're in our current building for 2 or 3 years, whatever it's going to be, that's a done deal. You can,
No,
the town,
I specifically asked Karen for a time frame. She could not give me a time frame. I said, are we talking 5 years, 10 years? But
what do you mean 5 years, 10 years?
Well, after the sale, after we sign a deal for
Once
the...
we have a deal with them, the deal is inked, that's it.
Well, that's not the way I understood it, and that's not what she told me.
Well, everyone at the library has understood it the complete opposite way. So I just caution everyone, because this is an important part of the funding for the state. For instance, when Tiverton ended up paying very little for their library, that's because once they had the deal with the state, they were able to raise unbelievable amounts of private money. They could sell their previous building, they could do whatever they wanted after that, and it doesn't go against the state contribution, okay? So my question is, assuming that is the way it is, if we accept this grant, the library has to be in place for 3 years? Is that what we're saying? So the town, if the town sold the library, the current library building, then that $36,000, our contribution, would have to be repaid to the state?
The application for this particular grant was predicated on the building being a heating and cooling center. So the grant condition is pretty straightforward. We have to maintain it as a heating and cooling center for a period of 3 years after we install the generator.
Right.
After that, we can do whatever we want with the building, we can do whatever we want with the generator, but it's a period of 3 years.
What is-
that has
I
to-
motion we make the old library a heating and cooling center from April 2018 for the next 3 years.
What does that mean? Can somebody tell me what heating and cooling center means?
It means it's an area for the public to go
So a
to
shelter?
during, yeah, but not in the terms of like an overnight shelter, but it's an area for the public to go to during periods of extreme weather, whether we have power outages.
So it
or
doesn't have to
whatever.
be a library, it can be a
Correct.
heating.
It could
A
be
heating
any-
and cooling center could be this building if we wished.
Yeah, so you
But
have
in
the
order to
generator.
qualify as a heating and cooling center, you need to have emergency power.
Right.
So that was the link to the grant.
Thanks.
So thank you for that, and just one more comment. So on Karen Allen, who is, right, Karen Allen, is that her last name?
Meller.
Oh, Karen Meller.
Karen Meller.
So I'm thinking of Karen Allen, I don't know why. So I've started communicating with her, and I think as we move forward, after we get closer to a negotiated deal, then I would welcome her to come to Town Hall and speak about all of these little nuances that the town loves to kind of chew on every day. You know, it's, you can, you can't, you get reimbursed, you don't get reimbursed, all of those things, and she can address those things publicly here. I would also welcome her to present and sit in on any meetings that we have that are executive sessions or workshops. So she's ready, willing, and able to do that, to basically quiet down the rumors that the library is not going to be successful, so.
Okay, so the heating and cooling center is not limited to running it as a library, correct?
Correct.
Okay,
Thank you, Lori.
thank you.
I also think it's a great feature for that building, no matter what that building
Yeah,
becomes.
whatever it
It's-
becomes.
so.
Any other discussion on the generator? Richard?
I would have changed the wording then, because this really is a public safety generator project taking place in the library. And the way it's worded here, the library generator project, really isn't
Well, maybe that's how
the
the
best way
grant,
to do it.
maybe, I don't know, Jeff, is that how it was written in the grant? I mean, so it was considered a library generator project in the grant, because,
Yeah, I think that's just a semantical issue.
Yeah.
The grant application had to identify the name of the building, which is the Maurice Lugens Library, and had to identify the address.
yeah,
I
okay.
mean, I look at this as an asset protection project.
Sure.
It's a building that we're going to own regardless
what.
of whether it's a
That's right.
library, a heating and cooling center,
That's
or
right.
whatever it becomes
Retail
3 years
outlet.
from now.
Retail.
Perfect, thank you. Any other discussion on the generator for the library? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 4-0, motion passes. Motion 7, a motion to approve the refinishing of the hardwood floors and repair the beaded board ceilings to the towers to be completed by Abcor Restoration Company in the amount of $17,490. Do I have a motion?
So move.
A second?
Second.
Discussion.
Yeah, I have a question.
Question.
So just based on what we talked about at the last meeting regarding Abcor and the contract
Bless
that they
you.
do
God bless.
work, the contract that they do work under, is this a different contract?
Yes, so the last meeting where we discussed the Abcor contract, that was for a restoration contract, that was April to April. We addressed that where it was 9 months after the fact, and the council made a decision to go back out to bid on that specific contract. Abcor does have another contract in place at the towers for general service work. Because this is not restoration, it is just the refinishing the floors, it's going to fall into the general service contract.
Okay, and I'm just curious, why is our Director of Public Works sponsoring something like this? Is just
He also oversees
Oh, he
all the
does? Oh, okay.
building maintenance.
Okay, I'm fine, okay,
When the pipes froze this weekend, he's the guy I called.
okay, all right.
Any other questions?
No questions.
Anybody from the public? Stanley?
I just want to verify, the funds here are paid by the tower's efforts, right? It's not a taxpayer dollar going in there, it's because the events that go there, they pay some money and they're in a fund, and that money is where we're getting this from?
I believe the towers is pretty self-sustaining, if
It's
not.
self-sustaining.
Stanley, you sit at budget every April, you know this.
Well, I
You've
was
been
in-
at every April budget,
yeah.
you
It's coming
know
from the
what the
towers.
towers.
I
your
just
vet- it
wanted to
says
make
it in the-
sure I
you
wasn't
know
missing anything. I
this.
thought I might be
It
missing
says it
something
in the
here,
description.
and I want to be very clear
You're
on it.
acting
and I wanted to
naive, you know it.
continue
You're
to be
there in
clear
April,
that
you
we
know
do
it.
not
Okay.
use
It is-
taxpayer
it's coming
funds when
from
we
the
have
towers.
private funds
Thank you.
available. I'm just trying to verify that. That's all I'm trying. If you don't want me to talk, you can tell me. Don't call me up next time. I won't talk. It's up
Don't
to
call
you.
him up next time.
Yeah,
No,
I'll be up here all the time trying to save
Stanley,
the taxpayer
Stanley.
a dollar.
Let him talk
That's all I
once on
wanna
one
do.
subject for the
Save
night. He says the same thing
taxpayer
over
a
and
dollar.
over
Pay
again.
attention.
You say the
Save
same-
the taxpayer.
Okay.
You're not paying
I think
attention.
I'm the person
Okay,
doing
okay,
that.
we got it, we got it.
Thank you, Stan.
Thank you
And
very much.
I will continue to call people up to the podium.
Thank you. Thank you.
He gets 15
Okay.
minutes when everyone else gets 3.
Okay.
Negative, I only got
yeah.
3. In fact, I had less than 3 at the open forum, if you notice.
All
I
those-
think it's important to
Thank
point
you.
something out here, though, Susan, regardless of this show.
Stanley, thank you.
Thank you very much.
The towers is profitable. It runs as a management fund. It does bring in revenue for the town, and it's very important that it's been run effectively over the last, since I've been on the council. Okay, so I want to make that point, and that the monies that have been spent on the roof and everything else come from that fund, which is a fund on its own, not from the general taxpayer fund.
And Matt, to that point, I think in the future, we're going to have some information in front of us that's going to give us the information for all the facilities in the town and how they're managed and run and what the revenue is or the revenue or the loss on the facilities. So I know that's coming in our future.
Yeah, can I ask one question on that? Just not to take off the topic, just but on the towers committee or the towers topic that we wanted to put on in January, is that going to be on the next meeting? We have a whole bunch of discussions about towers, Kinney, et cetera, and I've asked that to be fast-forwarded, right?
Yes, so I know it's going to take some time, but I know we're on the motion for ABCOR and the towers, so it's,
Yeah,
that's really all we're supposed to talk about on that motion, but I think to that point, we will talk to the manager about when that analysis of the properties in the town are done and when that will be before this council. Okay, this motion is on ABCOR doing some work on the towers. Any other discussion on this? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
4-0, motion passes. Motion 8, the town council president reappoints 2 individuals to the Historic District Commission for a 3-year term to end on January 1st, 2021, and 1 individual as an alternate for a 1-year term to expire on January 1st, 2019. And the 2 members that we'd like to be reappointed are Bob Shields and Gaya Sharon. And so their reappointment dates are, they would expire in January 1st, 2018. So those are the 2 members. And then the alternate would be Megan Murray, and she is the alternate, and she would serve until January 1st, 2018. Those are all expired, so it's for a 2-year term beyond that.
So moved.
So those are the, I'm going to ask, is it a 3-year term? Can you tell me if it's a 2 or 3, Ann? 3-year term. 3-year term. So, okay, so the alternate would be 1 year, and they would be 3 years. All those in favor of Robert Shields, Gaya Sharon, and Megan Murphy?
Aye.
Aye.
I get to really just do
Oh,
it, but
okay.
I'm glad you're supporting it, so they get
We'll support it.
reappointed,
We'll
and the
support
alternate gets on. I'm not used to just having that authority on my own, so thank you to my colleagues.
That one,
All right, and then the last motion tonight is a motion, I don't even have to vote on that, Ian? I just appoint them. Okay. Number 9, a motion to appoint and reappoint 4 individuals to the Land Trust for a 3-year term to expire January 1st, 2021. And Matt has the sitting members of the Land Trust who
Motion
are...
to appoint, I'll separate them if anybody would like me to. All right.
No,
Motion
go
to
ahead.
appoint Tom Rogers, Sue Bush, Jason Colonies, and Jerry Brunetto as reappointments to the Land Trust.
And I'll second that. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
4-0, they are all reappointed. And that concludes the meeting for tonight, so I have a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 4-0.
Stay warm.
Stay warm and see you next meeting.